Hello, good morning and welcome to Newsfile. This is your most authoritative news analysis platform. And here on Newsfile, we put Ghana first. I'm your host, Samson Lardy Anyenini. This morning, SIM card re-registration. Deadline has been pushed forward several times, and yet we can't seem to have all people with SIM cards registering. It is feared that millions may lose their SIM cards or their opportunity to use their phones and for all the other purposes from tomorrow. But painful part of it is that for some of them, it is no fault of theirs. They need a Ghana card to be able to complete this exercise. They don't have the Ghana card yet. What should happen? We understand it may be extended, but with some punitive conditions. How exactly does it look like? In Parliament, Adjo Asafo MP for Dom Kwabenya, the MPs are in a dilemma on a very specific aspect of the law. And the law is very plain, but they can't agree on what the law requires. Should she lose her seat or not? That is settled. But how? Well, the president has finally revoked her appointment as a minister. He hasn't sacked her. The CDD Afrobarometer Survey Round 9 comes to make worse the actual corruption survey report by the Statistical Service and SHRAJ. It says many Ghanaians perceive the police, the presidency, MPs, and judges as being most corrupt. How? Welcome back. This is Newsfile. It's your most authoritative news analysis platform, and here on Newsfile, we put Ghana first. I'm Samson Lardy Anyenini, and here is my take. Focus on the rot, not Martin Pebu, the whistleblower. And on your screen, you see a publication by My Joy Online. It says, retraction, Martin Pebu's comment. In that retraction, signed by him, he said that in the heat of the discussion, I passionately expressed my disgust at the inaction of the presidency in dealing with certain matters bordering on corruption. I do hereby retract and apologize for the expression purporting to connect the president of the Republic to crime. And Newsfile, or Joy, also issued a disclaimer. Now, this is what somebody wrote. He says, quote, if you focus on Martin's retracted comment and not on the real scandal that the president isn't addressing, you are part of why Ghana is sinking. Kweku Ntwibwe posted on Facebook. He's right. You are actually a part of the syndicate enabling the looting you pretend to denounce, but which only gets worse as recent surveys confirm. But the quality of the sincere applause for what is ethical conduct has been far more than the ill-thought attacks for the demonstration of candor and maturity. And that is all that matters. Martin Pebu did a noble thing, acknowledging he didn't have to use, quote, part of the criminal syndicate, end quote. It is difficult to appreciate why anyone will gloat over that and seek to question his courage and integrity because he spoke the truth. If you could master only a little of that courage, we will easily succeed in stopping the grand corruption that explains why a poor country like ours is not able to account for $3 billion each year. Corruption. We could also avoid paying 5 billion cedis in bribes, as the survey just revealed. If only we directed our energies as much at public office holders who do not have the respect, courage, and humility to recognize their wrongs, this country will be a lot better. Well, the next time you are framed up for a serious criminal offense like murder, rape, etc., you could get bail only because Martin Kpebu spent his own resources and skills to fight for that right for you. The next time someone whom you guaranteed bail for betrays your trust and runs away, you will not be arrested and become a candidate for jail because Martin Kpebu has already fought to keep you out of that jail and won. If you fell victim to rape or you are abused and thrown out of your matrimonial home, you could get shelter and financial support to fight the perpetrator. Because this same Martin Kpebu you are misled to pour scorn on in your ignorance and blind partisan political conduct, spent his own resources, time and skill and knowledge to fight for the establishment of the Domestic Violence Victim Support Fund. Yes, some of you, for some strange reasons, believe Oliver Mause Barkap Vomawo is capable of toppling the government in a coup d'etat. But even so, suspects have rights. It was Martin Kpebu who, in his usual defense of the ordinary citizen, boldly spoke truth to power about the abuse of his rights and his treatment as though he had been convicted. He has stressed that people should not be hanged if they committed harmless blunders in what they say while criticizing those they entrust with the governance of the state. Imagine how many politicians and commentators would survive in such a society. Stop imagining that he was forced or he feared facing court over that comment. First, there cannot be what you ignorantly claim to be criminal charges in this matter because there cannot be any such. Second, it will only be a pursuit in an ill-advised nuisance suit, and some public office holders would only be set up for maximum damage if they dared to mount the witness box or stand under cross-examination to assert a character free from the corruption they have accused others of in a defamation suit. Someone wrote, quote, "It's easy to duck and claim dexterity in the art of war when you don't actually expect real bullets to fly. Let's grant these cowards their hollow victory. If they know the anger that is brewing, they would be more worried." But Martin's bravery in taking on these issues so head-on wins my admiration any day. Martin is brewing several Martin-like clones. When the day comes, when all the Martins get unleashed, we will see who will show their faces. End quote. I share the invitation to focus on what angers Martin and impoverishes us so we can get duty bearers to do right by us in the Northern Development Authority fraudulent inflation of contract price scandal. Martin blew the whistle publicly right here on Newsfile. And the least we expect, and legitimately so, is that those indicted and now being investigated by the OSP ought to have been interdicted, just as was done to the former PPA boss when Manasseh's Contracts for Sale documentary was aired. Let's direct our energies to the thieves and their collaborators, and not those helping expose them and demanding good governance and democratic accountability. Read about the bizarre and wasteful COVID-19 fumigation contract Martin spoke about. Before talking, Manasseh Anyenini did that investigative piece revealing a job the District Assembly said they could do was rather packaged in contracts for that one sanitation company in this country. It already had an existing contract to do that same fumigation job each year, paid for. But it was yet again handed this new contract in the name of COVID-19 for potential duplication for double payments. Let that sink in. The assemblies said they had the equipment and only needed money to purchase the chemicals for spraying of markets and schools, and that they would have done it cheaply. This company did the job that the supervising state actors show curious figures on how much it cost the taxpayer. The local government ministry said phase 1 and phase 2 of the spraying cost UNI 153 million Ghana cedis. Wait, the finance minister said phase 1 alone cost UNI 122 million Ghana cedis. Put the two together and think. The local government and education ministries spent about 500 million, let that sink in, 500 million on the scandalous spraying, which was authorized by the president. Some 4 or more reputed experts, including scientists at the few specialized public institutions, confirmed the World Health Organization's position that the mass spraying was no COVID-19 measure, and there was no state regulatory agency approval for the exercise to fight COVID-19 either. Citizens watched the investigative documentary and went to sleep. Some will wake up to blame the media as though they had paid their taxes to Manasseh to risk his life beyond exposing the rots. The Constitution in Article 35, Clause 8 enjoins the state to, quote, take steps to eradicate corrupt practices and the abuse of power, end quote. And the buck stops with the executive president who won elections on a campaign to fight corruption. And that is my take. We're right back to get into the issues that we are canvassing for you this morning. But this show, as always, is brought to you by the kindest sponsorship of Bank of Africa, as strong as a group and close as a partner. MTN everywhere you go. Ashesi University, educating ethical and entrepreneurial leaders for Africa. Robert & Sons Optical Services, your comprehensive eye care service provider for 31 years. Waylead Properties, home is where one stars. Farnet Ghana, think wood, think Farnet. And Duroplus, where Duroplus goes, water flows. I'll be right back to introduce my guest and we get into the issues.
I've been chasing my Ghana card since the registration, the beginning of the registration, that was in 2018. And this is about my 9th time chasing it.
This is Alhaji Seidu Al-Hassan. 3 years ago, he registered for the national ID and is yet to receive it. He has traveled all the way from the Upper East region to the Elwak Sports Stadium to try and retrieve it as the deadline for SIM re-registration approaches.
And yesterday when I arrived, in fact I was tired, so I have to find out where I could get my card because the deadline had approached. And I was asked to go to Pantang. They collected my form and then told me I should come to Elwak yesterday. And I was here almost for 5 o'clock, only to be told that I should go and come this morning. And when I came this morning, 6 o'clock, the place was already full. And we have to sit in the queue, sift until reach my end, only to be told again that I should come 27th of this month. I think there is something wrong. They are hiding something from some of us. And the high time they tell us, the better. Highly frustrated because I was told at the headquarters I shouldn't come again and that they will call me. No, they would never call me. Only for me to be at the Upper East region. I was working. When I got to know that the time had run out, so I have to rush in yesterday, only to be told this morning again that I should come 27. Why? What is happening? I think there is some selective justice somewhere in this country.
The timeline for the SIM re-registration has been reviewed at least 3 times, but Alhaji Saidu and thousands of other people are yet to go through the process. As the deadline approaches, registration centers are swelling up with numbers.
I reached at 6 o'clock, and up to now, I'm still in the second process, not even to the third one before the fourth one. I don't understand the reason why I have to stay in all this queue. Oh, forget about registering a SIM card. Because I've not gotten the Ghana card, how can I register it?
So I have to crawl from Odan to this side. I've been in bed almost 2 years, but because of this, my child have to put me in a truck, drop me out somewhere there. I tried before I reach this side. It's only God knows.
This has become simply irritating for many.
So last month I was asked to go to Shashi for validation. So I went there and it was like I should come to Elwak for checking of my card. So I came here on Monday. And then I met a guy over there and he asked me, he told me I wasn't having any faults with my card. So I went back to MT and he asked me to come back to Elwak because I have faults with my card. Okay, it's very, very annoying because from Tema all the way since 2 weeks now. And even the TNT is even high for me. Because if I can register with my SIM card, then there's no use of the card for me.
For many of the registrants, the Communications Ministry must consider another extension to the deadline while decentralizing the process. For JoyNews, Michael Ashale.
We must make it difficult for the criminals who hack our systems and defraud us through multiple online channels to operate. And this SIM registration exercise is one of the steps the government is taking in that regard. Essentially, this stresses the point that this registration exercise will enable the establishment of a subscriber database with integrity to keep consumers safe from scams and fraud. It is therefore the responsibility of all of us who own SIM-enabled devices to take part in this registration exercise. Over 12 million Ghanaians have linked their Ghana cards to their SIM cards. And this shows that a lot of us understand the need for this exercise, especially to sanitize the telecommunications environment. I therefore take this opportunity to urge all who've not registered or are yet to register their SIM cards to do so. The deadline of 31st July is a few days away. It will not be extended.
We want to use this means to call on His Excellency President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo to instruct his Minister for Communications and Digitalizations to rescind her decision on the deadline, as it holds potential national security implications for millions of Ghanaians who have not been able to, due to no fault of theirs, register their SIM cards.
So we all know that accessibility to the Ghana card today is not available to millions of Ghanaians, tens of millions of Ghanaians, through no fault of theirs. Indeed, just about 2 weeks ago, the NIA was in this house to brief the house, and they themselves considered that not only do they not have offices across all the districts of this country, but that they are even handicapped in terms of even bare logistics, like printing cards, common ordinary printing cards, staff, and other logistics to be able to meet the growing needs of the people in respect of the obtaining of this card. And so they considered that they have challenges for which they sought the assistance of Parliament to get done. So if you cannot afford everybody access to the Ghana card, why are you making it automatic, compulsory? And in doing so, let me quote the relevant portion that the minister is seeking to use. The minister is seeking to use LI 2111 And LI 211, if you read it, it doesn't tell you that it is the sole document. It says it shall be a principal document. Principal is not coterminous with sole.
All right, so that was a report by JoyNews from the Elwak Sports Stadium. And then you heard the Minister, Esla Owusu-Ekufo, and then Sam George, who is a ranking member in the Communications Committee of Parliament, and ABA Fuseni. Let me bring on Dr. Kenneth Ashigbe, Chief Executive Officer, Ghana Chamber of Telecommunications, and Maximus Ametogo, who is Technology Analyst. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us this morning. Okay, but let me just I'm supposed to discuss this issue with just the two of you, but I think my guest here can share just, brief comments, 1 or 2 minutes on it before I come to you. And my guest in the studio, Martin Pebu, is lawyer and rights activist, and also here in the studio is Suleiman Ibrahima, Executive Director, Media Foundation for West Africa. We will be joined later by Dr. Theo Echampong, Political Risk Analyst and Economist, Dr. Eric Odro Osain, Director General, Internal Audit Agency, and Linda Oforukwafo, Executive Director, Ghana Integrity Initiative. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you very much.
Right, so you have been training as journalists, and at the Media Foundation for West Africa, you do a lot of work to train the journalists. And I'm supposed to sit here and act like a robot without emotions. I have no feelings. I'm seeing a man at the Elwak who is coming all the way from upper region. He's been chasing his cars for, he says, how many months? They say he'll be called, he doesn't get called. And we know this is very basic difficulty that people encounter in public service delivery in this country. You see the old man there coming from Ada. You have the lady coming from Tema. She's tired, she's paying transport. She comes there and her work suffers. I'm supposed to sit here and act like an unfeeling robot and just ask you questions and not to say that it is mindless, that it is only the NDC MPs who have feelings for Ghanaians and will speak. The MPP MPs will all join a queue and defend that whatever is going on is right. What's wrong with us?
Well, Samson, I think that what we are experiencing is a manifestation of a system that has basically segmented the population into beneficiaries and victims. And for those who are beneficiaries of the system, everything is fine. And those of us, and I would want to consider myself in the category of victims, those of us who are affected by the problems that are ongoing, continue to cry. And once we are into that cohorts of beneficiaries and victims, I think the banter would continue to be there. And I believe those who may expect journalists to act like robots, as you are saying, without emotions, even though they know that journalists are supposed to hold the government accountable. I think that the fundamental role of the media is to play that watchdog role. And that watchdog role does not mean give people opportunity to ventilate their concerns and so on and so forth. But for you to be the mouthpiece of the ordinary people. When I was watching Alaji and the man from Achimoda and so on, I felt so sad. But my reflection was also that, look, if you listen to the Alaji, this is certainly somebody who has been educated to a certain level. If you look at the kind of English he was using, and even the man from Achimoda, you know, who had to come in wheelchairs. So if these people who can afford to travel from Achimoda and to travel from Upper East to Accra,
for crying out loud, what sort of indignity is this? What sort of incompetence is this?
Yes.
This is a good job we need to do.
Exactly.
Getting a one multi-purpose ID card that serves all our needs instead of all the bits and pieces here, everyone SNIT ID card, driver's license, the ID card, everywhere ID card. This is the best thing, and we all applaud it. Implementing this thing What sort of incompetence is this? I can't imagine. Look, look at the man.
No, these are certainly retirees. And my point is, these people can afford the transport cost, the inconvenience, and so on to come to Accra. So imagine our mothers, our grandmothers, the poor who are in the rural areas who will be victims of this exercise but cannot travel to Accra to be able to, see whether they can go through. And certainly, from what they are saying, I don't know, and I don't believe that they were able to even go through the exercise to procure their Ghana cards. But the fundamental question for me is, we've been operating, the mobile telephony industry for the last 2 or so decades. Yes, there are issues of fraud, there are issues of crime that are enabled through the use of ITs or even mobile phones, if you may want to be specific. But over the years as a country, we've not crashed. So if we are taking steps to deal with all these issues of insecurity, including the threats of terrorism, fundamentalism, and so on and so forth, why do we act as if we don't do this thing within a year, Ghana is going to crash? I don't think that any country has done that. And this is particularly important because what Ghana is doing, the model we are using has been described as one of the most invasive and most intrusive mobile SIM registration in the world. We are included in the categories of countries that are implementing the most intrusive and the most invasive SIM card registration process.
Well, people have sought through the courts to ventilate and assert this particular part of their right, but the courts have thought differently. I think about 2 cases so far, they've all been thrown out.
Yes, but it still doesn't wash away the fact that, look, our exercise includes, they take your photograph, so facial recognition issues. They take your fingerprints, so biometrics included. They are now going to merge that into the Ghana card, and the Ghana card has everything. Where you come from, your mother, your father, your name, your date of birth, and everything. So we are part of the few countries that are implementing this kind of most invasive, SIM card registration process. And that is the more reason why there should be, the time span within which this should be done should be such that it doesn't really inconvenience anyone. We should get to the point where we tell ourselves and are convinced that those who haven't registered have deliberately refused to register. But if you look at the visuals out there and the numbers that we saw, I don't think that these are people who decided that, look, we would not pursue our Ghana card, we would not register, and so on. So if people have not been able to procure their Ghana cards because of, inefficiencies or whatever at the level of NIA, why do we want to foist this thing on them? So I think we need to be considerate, and we need to actually come to terms with the fact that, look, not everyone lives in Accra, not everyone lives in Kumasi or Takoradi or Ho. People live in rural areas, and how to even get to the district capital to get service is an issue. And we haven't put in any mechanisms to ensure that the process is eased for these kinds of people. And I certainly believe that we are at a point where this 31st date, if it's to be enforced, it would mean that, look, we are doing it and we don't care about the ordinary people. They can go to hell. Otherwise, something has to be done about the deadline.
Okay. So, Martin, I don't know when the Ghana card was being done, how you got yours. Somehow, we find ourselves in, you can't run away from it, privileged situations. Immediately it was being rolled out. Professor Kenatefa, who is one of us, a lawyer.
Yes, a good friend.
They were doing it in offices and places. They organized for the lawyers, Ghana Bar Association.
Yeah.
I went to the Bar Association, the bar center.
Okay.
I don't remember spending 15 minutes.
Okay.
And I got my card. But I'm not happy.
Yeah.
Why should this be this way?
Yeah.
As we understand, there are about 15 million SIM cards that have been linked to the Ghana card, but there are over 26 million SIM cards which are yet to be linked to the Ghana card.
Excellent. Yes. So it tells you that we are not ready at this juncture to deactivate the SIM cards that have not been registered with the Ghana card. We are not ready at all. Let's not, kind of deceive ourselves. We definitely must postpone. We must, because right now you have about 4.6 million subscribers, SIM cards, which are yet to be registered. And once those have not been done, there's no way you're just going to deactivate them by the stroke of a pen. No, it's going to cause chaos. Let's not forget these cards, these SIM cards, we use them to make calls, and so we pay taxes. We pay taxes. So are you going to cut your nose to spite your face? No. And then also there's going to be a huge security implication. So for me, it's clear to me that, look, we would have to do an extension. The numbers are too huge. The last population census from the synopsis that was sent to me showed that we have 19.9 million adults. That's above 15, okay? And so if out of these, and they are saying that there are about 40 million SIM cards, about 40, some are saying 43. That's right. So let's say 40 to 43 million. So right now, only 12 million SIM cards have been linked. So the difference is too huge for us to deactivate. So it's just not possible.
I am relying on Tech Ghana 24. It's a specialized online publication.
Thank you.
That deals with telcos and these things. So I think it is more reliable.
Okay.
They report that you have 41 million.
Okay.
It is 15 million SIM cards that have been linked to the Ghana card, and you have 26 million SIM cards which are yet to be linked to the Ghana card. This is different from the numbers that Professor Kenatefa and his National Identification Authority have been able to register. We hear people have been calling. I was listening to the Super Morning Show. People call from villages in the Volta region, far away, and they say they keep queuing and nothing really seems to happen.
Excellent, Sam. And it's mind-boggling, to say the least, that there is a threat to deactivate. It's very farcical. It's looking farcical. I don't think we should threaten people like that. Let's bring in this quickly. And also the 250 Ghana cedis that's being charged for premium service. Please, let's scrap that. It's too much. It's too much for the average Ghanaian. 250 Ghana cedis. It's too much. You know, Professor Teva is my mentor. We date way back. Okay, but Prof, this one, the 250 Ghana cedis. Alabraka, please reduce it drastically. Okay, right. And then I hear there's some experience from Nigeria that they are also in this process. That they extended it 3 times, and March this year was the last deadline. When they got to March this year, they saw that there were still millions who hadn't done. So they just said, oh, we entreat citizens to continue. And that's it. Okay. So this threat to deactivate please, this is Ghana. We will not take that line down. Please, the minister should, kindly look at it.
Let me go to the technical people. Maximus Ametogo, thank you, brother, for joining us.
Thank you, Samson. Great job.
Great. So let me begin on this note with you. I know you take me through the figures and what has to happen, because we also know that the telcos have been meeting with the minister and the other government stakeholders. A very senior lawyer sends me this. He says, Samson, I agree that there is a certain incompetence about this registration. And let me explain. I have 4 separate MTM SIM cards, 2 of them solely for Momo, personal and official, and 2 for TerribleNet routers, for office and for home. The registration process required that my biodata be captured for each of these SIM cards. So my biodata was captured 4 separate times. So you can imagine that this will add to the time spent on just attending to one person. There may be several people with multiple cards, and you can register how many, you will tell us. And so increase the pressure on the system. Why should it not be possible to capture my biodata once and connect all my SIM cards to my biodata? We should change the system and the backlog will be cleared. What do you say, Maximus?
I think it's a brilliant submission. And I also think that this whole idea of a deadline for SIM registration must be scrapped. Ghana is not going anywhere, neither the telecom industry. So if you have this huge number of people who have already linked their card, why don't you find a smarter way of getting the other people who can access a registration center because of maybe a geographical restriction or because of their age or some kind of inconvenience that we can, even for the lawyer's case, for example, I can register just a number, then use this as an index number, as in the index number. Then you link all the other devices that I have. I have about 7 table nets that I use for my work, right? So am I going to queue and register all the 7 table nets and then the phone numbers, right? So if I register only one, all that you do is, do you have any additional phone number or SIM card that you can add it? So that mobile number becomes an index number. Then you link all the other table nets or the services onto that one and becomes easier. So I can continue the process using an online portal or a short code to do that registration because you've already captured my bio data and other details using the index device. So it doesn't make sense to me that we're worrying ourselves doing extensions and all over the place. Let's get people to do this as and when they are available to do it. Telecommunication service is a tool of convenience, which you don't sell with inconvenience. So I believe that the extension must be done. It should go beyond the January 2023 people are talking about. We all know that the Ghana card system wasn't designed with a deadline in place. They have a minimum number that they can even, register in a day. Likewise, even the SIM registration. And you are using an internet portal or service. So even the telecom infrastructure cannot take all the traffic at a time. So you have a number of concurrent users. I'm sure the minister knows that a particular online resource can take at a time. So yesterday, for example, some of the short code, the 404 and the rest, were not working because of the traffic. Just like the same way when people go through to any of the telecom centers, they can't be served within a particular time period because the number of people they're serving them cannot manage the traffic. Now, the other thing is that you are using even the experience centers of most of the telecom companies. So the MTNs and the rest, they have their experience centers. I'm not sure government is paying them for using their workers to do SIM registration for government. Now, if MTN is building experience centers to where their customers are, it means that the distribution of the experience centers will not even be even. It's not legally required that it should be in every district. So they will not be there. So I'm sure people will be moving from different places to the next available customer experience centers to register their SIM cards.
Try explain this to me also. And this is personal. My office.
Yes.
We certainly needed a merchant, line.
Yeah.
So we use Ghana card to register it because the merchant numbers, the registration is a detailed process.
Right.
Actually, they can come to your office and it takes time to do it nicely for you. So initially we heard that those ones were not supposed to be re-registered because we have used Ghana card to register them. Then yesterday, I got a call from MTN that I'm supposed to re-register because that's what it's supposed to be. Can you explain that to me?
It doesn't make sense, Samson. The issue is that how we centralize even our data, that is the problem that we have. You have Ghana card doing the registration, and then they are inputting your mobile number as a data set on your profile. Then you are going to register that number again using the Ghana card. It doesn't make sense. So why don't they consolidate? So NCA, Ministry of Communication, SNIT, and the rest, so that they come together, build a centralized system. Then you say, okay, SNIT, you have access to these data sets on this particular data subject. Driver's license, you have this. So you give them various levels of access to some of the data sets to authenticate or verify the people. So doing a re-registration of your merchant number again, it does not make sense because you've already done that. Where did we even put the data of the people we registered some time ago that we are doing the same re-registration for? Where is it? And how do you even authenticate and verify some of the things that we are even collecting? So for me, we are just trying to put a layer of inconvenience on the service that's supposed to offer people's convenience. And we are frustrating everybody and the economy. Trust me, government is going to lose more than even the SIM card owner, right? They are going to do transactions, you are going to collect e-levy, and you are going to even create negative public sentiment for government. And as a politician, I'm sure it's the last thing you should be thinking about. Businesses are going to be frustrated. And of course, SIM card distribution also helps in mapping out your population distribution, right? So I think they should look at the bigger picture and focus on how do we make sure that we stagger the process so that people can register as and when they are at a particular, maybe a telecom service provider point of vendor, so they can do that. Now, total blackout doesn't make sense because you're going to deny people access to digital technology solutions or service.
So,
right?
So what should the NIA also be doing? I think the indignity that people are going through just to get a card it's not something that is tolerable. And that incompetence must not be visited on poor people as is going on now. On its NIA's website, 16.3 million cards have been printed. 13.3 million cards have been issued. 3 million cards printed but not issued to the owners. And when you check, it has taken months. 3 million printed but not issued to the owners. And this is not the fault of the 3 million people. So at the level of the NIA, what should be happening there too?
I think they need to organize their processes so that if I walk to your office to do a registration, right, what are the details that needs to be on the card? My name, my phone, what do you call it, date of birth, right? And then the Ghana card, which the Ghana card number. Now, if I walk in there, what do you need first? If you take my picture, pictures are physiological data sets that expires because I can take a picture without a beard, and when I grow, I develop a beard. It means that the system has to be updated to take my current physiological feature. Now, if you pick my biometric data, my fingerprint doesn't change. If you pick my iris, it does not change, even if I become 80 years or 90 years. So why don't you just pick that one, issue the card, and do the updating of the other things later, right? It's the same thing. So the person has a card, but you can do the updating of the other data sets in the person's profile. Identity is not just the card you are giving the people, but the data sets within their profile. So like the military people use, maybe the investigators, they say, when they say a profile of a person or the identity of the person, it's a file, it's not a card. So we should move away from that concept so that we hasten the process of issuing those cards. And we should see even the Ghana card number as the ID of the person than just the plastic card we are issuing to the people. So it comes to the process design and how all these things are well designed. So let's make it more comfortable. And if people have their cards there, why don't you engage the Ghana Post so that Ghana Post can do the distribution on your behalf? Get the people's number because the numbers, you have them already. And Ghana Post can do that at maybe a minimal cost because they are distributed in every district by law, right? So they're always present there.
You are an industry person. What do you know? Tech Ghana 24 reports that there have been meetings overnight or so with the NCA and the Ministry of Communications, and that it's likely that there will be an extension. Should I say likely or it is a must? Because you can't visit your sins and incompetence on the people. So, but there will be conditions, and they say these conditions are described as quite complex. They include the fact that SIM cards that remain unregistered by July 31, the July 31 deadline, will be suspended and giving a grace period to register. During the grace period, such SIMs will only be allowed to make and receive voice calls, but no data and SMS services. Again, if they remain unregistered after a given period, during the grace period, they will begin to attract higher tariffs for calls made until they register. And that it is expected that the minister will issue a statement, announcing this. And this actually is the agreement that the telcos are compromising to allow for the extension. What do you know?
I heard something like that. In fact, yesterday I posted on my Facebook page the same thing, that total blackout doesn't make sense. You can graduate the services that the people get on their SIM card, because the SIM card is a distribution point for telecom and technology services. So if the telcos can distribute certain maybe services using the SIM card as an access point, you can do a restriction. Say, okay, you can receive voice calls, you can send SMS or receive SMS till you do your SIM card registration. For me, even though it's to the extreme, I think it's better than doing the blackout, but charging people more and then, suspending the SIM cards and the rest. How does that cure the fraud the minister is talking about? How does that cure, prevent people from hacking other people? She used a cyber crime.
Yeah, so
don't need a
so I'm asking, charging me more because of what? I'm not the reason I'm unable to register. It is the state is the reason I'm unable to register. And you say you are giving me a grace period for which I should suffer because I haven't registered. And I want to register, but you are not making it possible for me to register.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. For me, I think the telcos should insist that they can limit or graduate the services that people access on their SIM cards, maybe put off some data service, and then they can do their calls and the rest. And something, there's a system that the telcos have where they can even tag a phone number as a spam number. So they call it a flagging score. So if a phone number makes a certain number of calls within a stipulated time, they flag it as being a robot than a human being. So the same way you can engineer something that can say, okay, the number calling you is unregistered. You can tag it like that. So I will decide whether to pick an unregistered number and do business with them or not. Now, if I have a phone number saved with a name on my phone, there's a trust stamped on that number than an unknown number calling me. So what do you do? You do a public service campaign so that, okay, if somebody is calling you with an unknown number that they want to do business with you, you have to verify, you have to check, you have to do all that. You need those campaigns to stop fraud. You don't need SIM card registration only to stop cybercrime. It will not work. It has never worked.
I understand that the fact that the broadband wireless access players like Surfline, Broadband Home, Busy Ghana, and Telesol were the fact that they were not allowed to start the re-registration early when it was announced in October 2021 is the reason this, extension is likely to happen. It's part of the major reasons this extension is likely to happen, because they only got the go-ahead to commence the process just this month or so, and it's been only about 9 days after they were giving the go-ahead to also ensure that people register their, what do you call them, the chips that they use for their broadband access. what for you, the players in this industry, what for you should happen immediately or in the long term, in wrapping up in some 2 minutes?
Yeah, I think they should just ask for other means of registration as easy. So you can use your driver's license or passport, because all of them take your data than just your phone number and date of birth. They should do that, and also extend the period, because it's going to affect their service and their investment. So government must consider.
Did you say they should allow the use of passports and what?
Yeah, you can use passport. You have other, so you have a passport or your driver's license, for example.
But will that not interrupt what we are trying to do? We're using only Ghana card so that we know that we have a system that, you know, is trustworthy. Is that not the case?
Yeah, so this is you don't want to deny people a telecom service. They have what they call a verifiable and form of identification. You can't tell me you can't travel with a Ghana passport or you can't drive with a driver's license. So it means that they already have some form of data. So use that as a primary identification, and then use the Ghana card later to verify or to upgrade the person's profile using those services. So
what else? You are talking about passport and driver's license. What else? Because the majority will not have passports and driver's licenses. And in any case, it just occurred to me, I got my Ghana card using my passport or driver's license, or even both.
Exactly. Yes.
So what's the difference? Why is it that there's a difference in the Ghana card and passport or driver's license? Because those are the original source document I use for my Ghana card.
Exactly. Something it shouldn't be different. It's just like your date of birth. Your date of birth shouldn't be different from you. Your surname must not be different from you, even though your surname is just one, right? So if you are linking all the cards to the Ghana card, it means that the other cards you are linking have been verified and authenticated, and you know the owner of those cards. So why don't you use the same cards for other services too as well?
But at least the Ghana card will have a different ID number, right?
Yes, so it will just be like your date of birth, right? So it won't change irrespective of where you input it. But the Ghana card will be like the mother of all cards.
Right.
But if we have other sub cards under the Ghana card, which will be used to authenticate your Ghana card first, it means those cards are also valid.
Okay. But the other question I was asking was, beyond the driver's license and is it the passport, what other document do you think could be allowed if they want to contemplate that? Because not too many will have a passport or a driver's license.
Something, you know, I think the Ghana card, the NIA use a smart system where you use a proxy. So if I have a cousin, I have a brother who doesn't have a Ghana card, I can go and use my card as a proxy to, you know, get them via SIM cards or whatever registered. You can do the same thing because you want to identify people. So you can identify people by their relationship to other people, and location and the rest don't work because it changes. And if I input my physical address or my house address, those things change. Okay. Right? Because people move, people migrate and the rest. But if my cousin is not dead or I'm not dead, he will still be alive. So if you want to find my cousin, you can always call Maximus, where is your cousin? And I can find you my cousin. So let's make things more comfortable. Let's make things more convenient. Technology is a tool of convenience. So we shouldn't use inconvenience to sell it. Okay.
Thank you very much. Maximus Ametogo is technology analyst. Thank you so very much. And I call him brother because it's just not an ordinary usage. At the University of Ghana, those of us who were at LPU, Legon Pentecostals Union, that was how we greeted each other. Now, I'll go to a few messages and then we'll take a break and return to discuss the other issues we have. This one from Kojo, he says, please, wanted me to ask Maximus a question. Why the biodata could not have been pulled from the Ghana card and we have to take our biodata again for SIM registration, what is the added value of creating another database? We have linked TIN, SNIT, bank account, passport, and driver's license. So why can't we just link our numbers? With the NIA, do they have the money to do their job in this difficult economic situation? Okay, I think I've heard Professor Kenatefa, bemoan the issue of money and saying that if they had some amount of money, they'll be able to ramp up. But someone is also asking a question. Noti is asking about the special service they are providing, the premium service. Is it not bringing them money? How much have they gathered so far? What are they used that money for? This one by Frank Addison, he says that we are a very proud, well-educated and intelligent people. So how we end up with such incompetent bunch making decisions and choices that appears to so dumb and illogical. How did we get here? I just don't understand. Why do we like frustrating citizens? Is Ghana PLC coming to an end? We compelled people in the middle of a pandemic to register to vote. Less than 2 years, we are getting people to go through same frustration again. I'm sure Electoral Commission is planning another registration soon. Why are we subjecting citizens to this? Ghanaians clearly deserve, oh no, we don't deserve this. It says Ghanaians clearly deserve this. We don't deserve this. Eric says that I did my SIM registration in January. I was told data SIM, that's like the TurboNet, FBB or is it LOT, were not to be re-registered. So they did it for only the SIMs I used to make and receive calls. Could you please help me clarify? Well, I just told, I asked Maximus a while ago. They are now saying all those should be registered, please. So get ready to get that done. All those are supposed to be registered. Okay. I will take a break and return to read some more of your messages. Let me read this one from Manche Bruce in Takrady. He says, the success of the SIM card re-registration exercise is inextricably hinged on the issuance of the Ghana card by the NIA. As it stands, less than 50% of mobile phone users have received their Ghana cards. Is it less? The Ministry of Communication and Digitization is doing a good job, but it must reconsider its decision of not extending the deadline for the registration exercise. The NIA must rather be giving all the necessary support to deliver the cards to the Ghanaian people, pursuant to which a new deadline could be given. I agree with you, Manche Bruce. Kenatefa and his team, they won the Integrity Institution of the Year last year. And the survey, corruption survey, the actual corruption survey shows that they are not a corrupt institution. People don't go there. Even though people are interacting with them, you don't see the officers taking bribes and so on. And that is good news. So they should do better. All right, we take a break here. We'll be right back.
Our primary response target was not institutions. We didn't gather the data from institutions' point of view. We gathered the data from the public point of view. And the public, we chose the criteria whether you've made contact with a particular institution or not. So if out of our sample, you have, let's say, only 5 people making contact with the Narcotics Board, Ghana Statistical Service, TRAJ. How many of us come into contact with these institutions?
Right.
So statistically, you cannot make any inference based on that. It's statistically, you cannot do that. So if you want to specifically do something with audit, approach it and make it purposive for audit and gather all those who get into contact with audit. And that would be a different sampling approach. But if you want to have the prevalence of bribe payment for the entire country, your point of entry should be the population. not the institution. And this work has nothing to do with targeting one institution or the other. To contextualize the questionnaire that we got from the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, we set up a steering committee and a technical committee right from the questionnaire development stage through the analysis up to the release of the report. And the Ghana Police Service served on the steering committee. So they've been with the process throughout. The issue of aggregating some institutions and disaggregating some institutions goes back to what I said earlier on. So for instance, if you take GRA, where we sort of disaggregated, keep in mind that we want to put out a figure that is statistically significant. So if you get into the police, we can further do disaggregation across the different departments based on the type of service that warranted the payment of bribe. Simply because we have a huge number of persons in Ghana that are interacting with the police. If you take lecturers, teachers, based on the data that we have, once you disaggregate it, you cannot make any statistical inference out of it. And that is why we sort of put them together. We are not saying teachers are the same as lecturers, but the object of this work is to get what? Identify areas that have commonalities for policy intervention.
President, on a scale of 1 to 10, I would have given the president 8.
Did you say 8?
10. I'll give the president 8 over 10. Look, the reason why I'm giving the president 8 is, look, if you ask me, how has this country fared in the fight against corruption? I'll say that this country has done maybe good or fairly good, 6, 5. I will say that. But if you ask of the president's effort in fighting corruption, I'll give the president 8. And the reason being, the president has done whatever is necessary. However, there are other institutions of government that are supposed to work. If they are not doing the work, if the law is defective, the parliament has to play its role. If judiciary is not proactive, judiciary has to play its role. So I don't want to blame the government, the president, if measures being taken are not necessary work.
The members of the public too must be blamed for the type of police, the accusation that they are making. They are also equally guilty because if you don't give the police money, he cannot take it from your pocket. If you commit an offense and the police want to charge you for court, you have to allow yourself to go through the due process. Because at times, even when you go to court, the offense may not attract a serious fine. But when you tempt the police with money, when you don't want to go to court, then you are giving the police chance, an unscrupulous policeman, chance to demand any amount of money because you are not willing to allow yourself to go to court. You see, so at times I thank the public too, and there's a need for education. In fact, we've been talking to them, we've been training them, and from time to time, those who are offenders, that is a policeman, if you are found to have collected money or to have extorted money or to have done something unlawfully, we normally punish them. Some of them are dismissed. Some of them, depending on the nature of the offense, they are even sent to court after dismissal. And so unless it doesn't come to the notice of the police authorities, as far as it comes to the notice of the police authorities, the right punishment is meted out to the erring policeman. So when something happens and you are not happy, you have to report to the policeman. But if you don't, it doesn't get to the authority of the police, the police authorities, that is the attitude or the conduct or misconduct of the policeman concerned, it becomes difficult for the senior officers to take action.
Well, so you've just been listening to a police officer who has been reacting on the back of a statement issued under the hand of the Inspector General of Police, is it? Yes. Reacting to the actual corruption, survey that was done. The police is not happy. And among others, they say that, well, you are the ones who are compromising the police. Just stop. If you don't stop, then it will continue. The police have also raised issues concerning other institutions. They are asking why, for example, the investigations did not get to the port. It does appear that they seem to know that that place you have discovered a lot more rot than at the police. They have questions about the quantum involved. So in simple terms, well, they are taking 5 Ghana cedis or 2 Ghana cedis or so on. So theirs is not that much. There's a lot more to pay attention to. But people say, some say the IGP has done a good job, at least by paying attention and reading and interrogating the survey. Most of the institutions, some people say they can bet, will not even look at the survey and to read it. So nothing is going to change. Now, joining us for this second segment, Dr. Theo Champong, political risk analyst and economist. He's always been speaking to us from his base in the United Kingdom. Today, we are lucky he's right here in the studio. Doc, thank you very much for joining us here in the studio. We are joined via Zoom by Dr. Eric Oduro-Sai, who is Director General, Internal Audit Agency, and Linda Ofori-Kwafo, Executive Director, Ghana Integrity Initiative. Suleiman Ibrahima is here, and Martin Pebu is also here. So, gentlemen, before we even go to the Afrobarometer round 9, let's take your reactions on what the police think about the survey that was released. So, what do you have to say, Martin?
Okay, so the reaction from the police, I think that, one, I also joined in the call that it's good that the IG read it and they are raising questions. You see, when we embark on this public debates and the rest, usually we get some new perspectives. We help to, broaden the discussion. It helps to throw more light. So to that extent, it's good he raised questions, but to reject the survey, that one, no. He can't, he said that it just shows that they are continuing the perception from decades ago. No, that's not correct. These are new persons who were interviewed. And the perception, as some would say, is largely based... This is not
perception, this is actual.
Yeah, it's based on reality.
That's right.
It's based on reality. So if you say that, no, that's people are using their perception from old surveys and the rest, perception surveys, that's not correct. Let's just eat humble pie. Let's accept that, look, it's not going well. We are not able to tackle corruption. What do we need to do differently? Yes, I'm aware they do service inquiries for people who are found to be corrupt and the rest, but he needs to perhaps bring outsiders in. You see, as an institution, because he's in there, it's not everything he will see. He should compose an independent body to, critically look at the police service, look at how people can bring in new suggestions, especially the low-hanging fruits like the traffic offenses. Mm-hmm. What do you call it? Spot fines, tickets, spot fines. We've been discussing this, I remember, from the 2000s. Then we shelved it. You go elsewhere, if you've run the red light, there and there, they show you the evidence, then they give you a spot fine. If you want to challenge it, well, you go to court. But if you accept, you pay. And of course, it goes into the system, not into somebody's packet. So there are quite a number of other things, I think, that if he invites this in a debate, people can proffer solutions. You say it. And then, of course, the larger thing about the whole of the society, the point he makes that we bribe the police.
Yes.
You don't have to take it. You don't have to take it. If I offer a bribe and you think it's wrong, you don't take it. And there are situations where policemen have turned in citizens who attempted to bribe them. Maybe we should play more and more of those. You see, so please.
The police officer who won the Integrity Personality of the Year.
Thank you.
It was his own colleagues who tried to bribe him with 20,000, was it, so that he will stop investigations that he was doing.
Thank you.
That is how come he won that the Integrity Personality of the Year.
Yes. So please, if we offer bribe, don't take it and then turn around and report us. That's how we do it. Because we all come to...
That officer actually took the money and used it to prosecute them. He told them, what you're doing is wrong, I'll use it to prosecute you.
Excellent.
And he's using it to prosecute
Excellent.
them.
So please, when we offer bribe, don't take. Because you see, Sam, the thing is that we all just have to accept that this thing can't go on anyway. We are not talking here because we think we are angels, but somehow we have to take the bull by the horn. We have to confront the problem head on so that we all can come together and stop it. Because if you were to say, hey, tomorrow I may be corrupt, so let me not speak today, then it will get worse. So let's just accept it. Let's look for further solutions. Those are my preliminary comments.
Sule, is it not the case that people interact with the police a lot more than all the other institutions that, you know, have had to be interviewed by the Statistical Service and charged for this? And so that explains what is going on. I've had lawyers, after they saw the IGP's release, talk to me and say, look, we are lawyers. We know what goes on. We deal with clients all the time. They are talking about being forced to pay money before bail is granted. Meanwhile, bail is not supposed to come with money, not a dime, but they take it all the time. So what is the IGP talking about? And some raise the question that when police officers misconduct themselves, they are subjected to service inquiry. Why are they not being prosecuted rather? Because service inquiry, you may get suspended or
dismissed.
You may get suspended or dismissed. Sometimes it is something, suspension and something else, suspension or demotion.
Yes.
But if you are prosecuted, the least you may face will be 12 years in prison or 25 years.
Well, I think that first of all, your point about the police engaging with citizens on matters related to crime and other offenses that would often result in possible exchange of monies is perhaps more than any other institution. The road, traffic folks, the people who would go to the police station to complain about somebody offending them, and as a result, the police having to resolve the matter sometimes at the local level without even taking the matter to court, and so on and so forth. So generally, it is not surprising that people would often rate the police as perhaps the most corrupt. And if you look at the question that was posed, and I was particular about the questions that were asked in the Afrobarometer survey.
Okay.
It talks about how many people do you think, would engage in an act of corruption? It is not about who takes the most and so on. And so it is again not surprising that people would say, well, I think that in terms of how many people, the police would dominate and all of that. What would have been also interesting would have been a question about what people think in terms of quantum. Because I've had several engagements at which COP Kofi Boache, for example, would say, look, the policeman takes 5 cedis or 10 cedis or 20. So you may have 1,000 police officers who are engaged in these kinds of acts, and if you put all that together, maybe it's less than even 20,000 or 30,000.
Right.
But somebody signs one contract and gets away with 1 million cedis. And then at the end, we say, oh, that person is the least corrupt versus in terms of comparing that person with the police. So I think these surveys are really, really helpful, but we need to go a bit deeper into the nuances of the issues. And on the IGP statement...
In the NCA trial that went on and concluded not too long ago involving William Tevi, Bafuboni and the rest of them who have been thrown in 16 years, the quantum of the amount involved was actually in cedis. That was about $8 million. So the police have a point there, right?
Yeah, exactly. So some analysis in terms of the quantum, what people think in terms of the quantum. Because look, what could happen in one ministry alone? Maybe like 3 years or 4 years of whatever the police may have collected on the roadside and so on and so forth. So that analysis will be important. And I'm also impressed by the IGP's statement, particularly in the context of he being concerned about whatever was revealed and trying to contest the findings. I was not quite impressed with comparing why didn't the survey also deal with this institution or that institution and so on and so on.
Or even those institutions that conducted the survey, why didn't they investigate themselves?
Exactly.
Because they too, people interact with them. That's the question he asked.
Exactly.
That's cynical.
That's important, but for me, it begs the question, are you saying okay, because I didn't look at myself, it was not worth looking at you. For me, what is important is the fact that, look, the man at the helm, says, I'm concerned about this. And certainly it also indicates that going forward, certain steps will be taken to ensure that in subsequent surveys, perhaps the results might be different, or the nuances will reveal a certain pattern and trend that may, after all, indicate in terms of numbers, yes, the police may dominate, but in terms of quantum, if we were to do that, perhaps the police would have been at the bottom in terms of how much is taken and what people witness or what people encounter. The police may have been at the bottom.
Let's get Dr. Theo Champon's also views on this particular issue. And those who interacted with me, one of them said is that he doesn't mind if I made it public, that when we say that the police are not involved in, the quantum involved is negligible, it is not always correct. And he says, he gives me an example, that the Bachona police in 2018 took money to grant bail. He quoted about 4,000. That's quite a bit of money for people who couldn't afford it. And they had to go look for the money. The police officers were reported to the PIPs for action. Nothing has happened since, regardless of reminders to the police to take action. So he says, why is the police not interested in that, for example? Now, again, I'm told of a situation where it's about a land matter, where the property fraud unit, the police officers have been used to harass holders of a Supreme Court judgment over the Bachona lands. Police officers offer protection in exchange for lands. And these matters are reported all the time. Nothing happens.
Yeah, absolutely, and good morning. I think for someone, I have been involved in actually designing some of these surveys.
Okay.
So I do appreciate what actually goes into what these surveys are meant to do. And perhaps the context really is important here, particularly for both the Afrobarometer, the CDD one, and also the Shraj survey. So remember that they actually went to households.
That's right.
To ask them a number of questions. And so typically in that household setting, it's going to be the institutions you come into contact with on an everyday basis that would end up showing at the top.
That's
right. But that does not mean that the findings are not empirically rigorous or cannot be validated. And like Suleiman, I was also quite happy to actually read the IGP's statement, because I was like, oh yeah, that's
very detailed
and quite substantive and detailed, and raising issues of methodology, raising issues about sampling and all. And I think that overall is healthy for us as a country. But one thing that is quite clear is when you look at most of these surveys going back the last 10 years, especially at the household level, persistently, the police and other of these front-facing agencies come up tops, regardless of how you go about doing the sampling and how you go about eventually doing the analysis. And I do take the point that because you're only dealing with households, some of the big, let's call it white-collar crime, right? And the corruption that you see with things like procurement and contracts and things like that may not necessarily be at the forefront of someone you speak to when you come to my house and you're asking about, issues like that. But interestingly, when you also look at the Shraj report, it actually did indicate, and I found time to go through all the almost 110 pages, that almost 23% of the adult population in Ghana paid a bribe in 2021. This is they themselves, or all of us collectively, 2 in 10 Ghanaians saying, yeah, I'm happy to actually, have paid that bribe. And what more is worrying for me is that if you actually look at the age group and the education profile of those who paid their bribes, is actually the more educated of us. So there's almost 1.7 times, or you're almost 1.7 times more likely if you're educated to pay a bribe than my grandmother who is in the village. And if you're between 25 to 34 or 35 to 49, cumulatively, It's about 60% of the total sample. So that, for me, tells me that we have a problem in terms of issues of bribery, in terms of other manifestations of corruption. But what is quite key here is that something needs to be done in terms of those front-facing organizations, and the police should take it in their stride. And I know, of course, they would have certain corruption measures and things like that in place. But methodologically and empirically, I think the survey is sound, and we can debate other issues in relation to that. Of course, there's a lot of leakages at the port. There's a lot of other issues within the system that if we were to do a comprehensive analysis, you may find that maybe the police may not necessarily be at the top, but somewhere in the middle. But these all add up to the wastage, and they all add up to the issues that we see. Because I am worried. I've been in this country the last couple of days, and I found time to go out or walk on the streets and talk to the person selling the PK or selling the hacks or selling water by the street. And the level of despondency, you may even say hopelessness, that I see worries me a lot, because it is these same people that we're supposed to deliver the democratic dividend to. And if at the end of the day, we're still wasting the money through corruption and through other means, then I worry that there might be some sort of social implosion in this country in the near future. Right.
I'm going to Linda Oforekwafo, and you have been saying a few things, particularly about the Afrobarometer round 9 survey, and you say that we are using elections to recycle corruption, and therefore we shouldn't wait for elections to demand what we deserve. We should do them now. But before we get to that one, I want you to hear what Kofi Bentil is saying about this and get your comment on the actual corruption survey. He says, in summary, we can say the IGP has a right to defend his institutions. He must be commended for taking interest and fighting back, and for working to improve things at the police. Let's encourage him to reduce police corruption. It is real. But let's also say, I can confirm that there is an improvement from previous years. I just hope IG Dampare goes on to crack down on corruption in the police. We also need to institute a spot fine system. Now, people have been concerned that his interest should be taking the report and showing us what he has done to improve the situation. What do you say?
Thank you very much, Samson. I must say that he has a right, and as I think I've forgotten who said it in the studio, the fact that he's even shown interest in reading the reports for us is encouraging. But truth be told, Samson, the problem with police corruption has been around for a very long time. And the first thing that came to mind, that when he took office and started showing much commitment to dealing with the criminals, I told a friend, and I was like, I also want to know what he's going to do about the problem of police corruption. Reason being the important role the police play so far as sustaining our democracy is concerned. Earlier on, I had a discussion about the amount involved, and I will say that police people don't only engage in petty corruption. And even so, if it's only petty corruption that we're looking at, if they actually look away, take 5 cities, 10 cities from a driver, and the person's vehicle is not roadworthy, and then the person moves on, the person does not have insurance and actually knocks down people as they go. Are we talking about the implications that has the impact of the police inaction after the taking of the bribe? Tomorrow it might be taking bribe to look away when terrorists want to get their way. Tomorrow it will be about a drug issue, and we've had drug issues before, where allegations were that cocaine turned into Kokunte when the police were keeping them. So the police corruption cannot only be limited to petty corruption, and the implications are that. And for me, if any IGP takes up the mantle to deal with the situation, we, the ordinary people, would want to know what efforts have been put in place. I sit here and I can say the PIPS thing is not working. And so we should be thinking about the Independent Police Complaints Commission. That conversation will have to start all over again, and we have to have a way of solving the problem. It is common knowledge. Dr. Theo said along the lines that these are not the only two surveys that are bringing up the issue of police corruption. The Global Corruption Barometer, GI has had our own perception surveys have shown that the problem with police corruption has always been up there. I remember one of our surveys, it actually came to light that perception of the police being corrupt topped, but when it got to the actual amounts involved, which of the institutions takes more money, I think that time it was the Customs Division of GRA that came up. So then the people's general perception, because they see, they hear, it's all over the place, the petty bribes, the petty amounts that they take, people see them. So they always will say the police is corrupt. But then when it got to actual amounts of money, it was the Customs Division, I've forgotten some, about 2017 thereabouts. So then, for me, the problem we have to address is that the IGP has shown interest, the SHRAJ and Statistical Service should sit down and have conversation with him. We have had it in the past. They've come to our office. And I remember Mr. Azim's term or so. We had a conversation with the police. How do we move beyond having the conversations and helping the administration to deal with this? I believe it can be dealt with. And it that shows commitment in doing that. And also letting the public know exactly what efforts have been put in place can go a long way in reducing this kind of perception. But the reality is that it is a big problem that we need to deal with, especially because of the important role they play.
All right.
I'm not playing any important role, but the police role is very important.
I'll return to you shortly to start the discussion on the Afrobarometer Round 9 survey results, because I have issues with that that I think we should look at. Because, for example, if you look at the police specifically, the perception, the survey on perception is 67%. 67% think that the police is most corrupt. Then you have what the SHRAJ and the Statistical Service doing, you have 57%. So actual terms, 57, perception, 67. What is wrong here? And then even in the perception survey, the police is number 1. Then you have the Presidency Jubilee House, you have the MPs, and then you have the judiciary, 4th. Yet, trust levels are high for the judiciary. How do you explain that? So I'll come to you to answer that. But Dr. Odrosai, the reason we felt it was important to have you is because people are asking the question, what are the internal checks that are going on, your outfits? What have you been doing? Because you should be able to spot the wrongdoing even before it gets to the Auditor General. You should be able to issue some sanctions and stop it before it gets to the Auditor General. So it doesn't appear you are working as you should. Dr. Drosai. Okay, I understand we lost him. Yes, let's hear from you, Linda Oforikwa, for the question I asked about the, if you like, conflicting responses.
Okay, so
thank you very much.
Okay, Dr. Drosai is on.
Yes, sir. Let's hear from you, Linda Oforikwa, for the question I asked about the
Yeah, Dr. Drosai, listen to me directly. Please go ahead and let's hear your response.
All right.
Okay, Dr. Drosai is on.
Thank you very much, Samson, and good morning to our panelists. Samson, you are...
Please go ahead and let's hear your response.
Okay.
All right. Okay, Dr. Drosai is on.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Samson. Samson, you are right. Before anything that the external auditor would see, internal auditors would have seen a year before.
Okay.
The challenge the internal auditors have in the system is that the internal auditors law at the moment is very, very obsolete. The internal auditors are demoralized. Apart from that, the internal auditors will make all the recommendations they need to make. within the structures, we have audit committees, specially established, chaired by independent chartered accountants. These people will pursue management to implement the Auditor General's recommendations. But Samson, people must understand that the Auditor General does not implement his or her own recommendations, except for the surcharge, disallowance and surcharge provisions under the Constitution. So if we can turn the heat on public officers not implementing recommendations from internal audit report, and here let me commend the current Speaker of Parliament and the Clerk of Parliament. The reason I'm commending them in ensuring implementation of recommendations of Auditor General's report is that Public Accounts Committee currently is sitting on 2018-2019 Auditor General's report. What it means is that we are 3 years late. Before funds will be recovered, those who may have been involved in the irregularities, some may have died, some may have passed on, some may have resigned, some cannot be found. So what the current Parliament is doing is that within the meaning of the law, annually they receive a copy of the Audit Committee's report. So once they receive the report, they get a first-hand information. Mr. Speaker refers it to the appropriate select committee. So they have the current status report, and then they will support implementation. So I think internal auditors are supposed to do what they need to do, but they are challenged by legislation. At the moment, there is an internal audit service bill, but its passage is very slow. Because if we don't pass that bill, you get internal auditors working under various institutions, and they depend on these same institutions that they have to put a check on to implement recommendations for their salaries and logistics to work with. And it compromises their independence. But I think there is a challenge within the internal audit service or internal audit activities in Ghana. More to the point, they are the gatekeepers. So I think if we really want to fight corruption, we have to resource internal auditors, allow them to be independent, and then make sure they perform their gatekeeping role.
How could this important thing you talk about have escaped the lawmaker? And how quick do you expect this to be done?
I believe that it escaped everybody in Ghana because at the moment when you talk about audits, people look more of the external auditors. Meanwhile, they come in and within 2 weeks they are away. What I think we can do is to fast track the process of passing the new internal audit service bill, which brings all internal auditors under one umbrella. They will have their independence, they will have their resources. They can properly put a check on the system as gatekeepers. The bill is on Parliament's calendar to discuss it. I don't know what is preventing Parliament from discussing and passing the new internal audit service bill, which is a way to prevent and then ensure that the gatekeepers prevent these corrupt issues that we are talking about. That's the best way of resolving it, because anything the external auditor would do would have been a post approach. The money would have been stolen already. Why is it that if you have somebody who can prevent, you not empower the person to prevent, but you rather empower the person who come and take what has already been stolen? I just don't understand it.
But in your own way, can't you find ways around how to, ensure that you are a lot more effective and biting even before the law, is tweaked?
Something we are doing our best. At the Internal Audit Agency now, we have an MOU with the IOCO. So when we receive the quarterly internal audit reports, those that are isolated and people are seen to have embezzled or misused funds, we refer them to IOCO because we do not have prosecutorial powers. At the moment, we are also doing naming and shaming. And then we also work with the Minister for Finance to activate the powers given to him under the Public Financial Management Act to surcharge, to sanction public officers who misuse public funds. That's the best we can do within the meaning of our current law. But if our new law is passed and we are given prosecutorial powers, you would see that we'll be able to do what is, because we are at the forefront. We are with the institutions 24/7. But let us give credit where credit is due, because at the moment, the Internal Audit Agency has also been engaged to work on validating payroll and then also cleaning the payroll register. And this is the best thing to be done because the internal auditors sit with the institutions and they know who the ghosts are. They are the best people to prevent the ghost from resurfacing. In the past, we allow people to move from Accra and go to district to go and chase ghosts. They leave the district and the ghost will resurface. But now we are using the internal auditors, except that our legislation is still weak. So even if we find this ghost, we are not able to prosecute them. We have to hand them over to another institution. And the moment they delay the process, we are in trouble.
What does your department make of the actual and perception corruption surveys that have been revealed so far?
We think they are input for policy making, and we think that we should not underrate the findings of the survey. I also think that I'm happy, and I give the IGP thumbs up for the quick response, because what it means is that he's reading the document and he's asked certain questions. I would expect that he will receive responses to those questions so that it will inform his strategy. I'm expecting the other institutions mentioned in the report, either the survey report or the Shraj report, to also give responses and give Ghanaians some assurance that they've taken it in good faith and that it will inform the reform they want to do in their institutions. We need these recommendations, we need these survey reports because they provide empirical data and information for decision making. So we are happy and we are monitoring it closely. In the 2023 trust areas for internal auditors, I am going to factor some of the items in it. Currently, they are auditing asset declaration by public officers. They are also auditing how people have implemented recommendations from the Auditor General's report. So I'm very happy about it. And we want to use it as a baseline to inform policy making.
Thank you very much, Dr. Eric Odrosai. We will take a quick break, and when we return, we'll go to the Afrobarometer survey round 9. Thank you for Dr. Odrosai. He joined us just briefly to answer for himself and his department because questions are being asked that they are the ones who are actually doing the work at that stage and should be able to stop some of these. This show is brought to you by the kind sponsorship of Bank of Africa, strong as a group and close as a partner, MTN everywhere you go. Ashesi University, educating ethical and entrepreneur leaders for Africa. Robert & Sons Optical Services, your comprehensive eye care service provider for 31 years. Waylead Properties, home is where one starts. Fanat Ghana, think wood, think Fanat, and Duraplus, where Duraplus goes, water flows. We'll be right back. You're welcome back. This is Newsfile. It's your most authoritative news analysis platform, and here on Newsfile we put Ghana first. My guest, Linda Ofori-Kwafo, Executive Director, Ghana Integrity Initiative. Suleiman Ibrahima is Executive Director, Media Foundation for West Africa. Martin Pebu is a lawyer and rights activist, and Dr. Theo Champong is political risk analyst and economist. So, Linda, the question was to you. The fact that when we did the actual survey, you had 57 who say police is corrupt. Then when you do the perception, you have 67 plus or so. What isn't that some inconsistency? Doesn't that actually firm up the IGP's concerns? I'm reading messages from police officers who are saying that we are treating them unfairly, that they are good police officers, and we seem to say every police officer, is doing the wrong thing. And again, the same survey respondents say the police tops the list, the Jubilee House is number 2, MPs number 3, and judges number 4. And yet, when it comes to issues of trust, they trust the judges more. How do you explain that?
I also agree with you. There are many police people who are very good. I know some. I wouldn't want to mention names, and I know many of them, to be frank. But then, if you look at the surveys, I think the Statistical Service one, the actual percentage for the police is 53.2%. And then the Afrobarometer was 65% or so not 57. So there are two different surveys. There are two different sample sizes. There are two different methodologies, if I can say so. The Afrobarometer is looking at perception, just like the Corruption Perception Index, and this one is looking at actuals, so actually looking at lived experiences. So people's experience, it can be what they've witnessed, what they have become victims of, and all that. So that might have accounted for the difference in the percentages. But ultimately, if they had said another institution was the most corrupt, and the Afrobarometer has said a different thing, that is when we would have had to do more conversation and discussion to see what might have accounted for that. To be frank, when surveys are being administered and questionnaires are being administered, we normally would not ask a question, why, after you've given us the response, so that we try to make sure that the question itself is good enough to actually get what we want from you, and we didn't go back to say, why are you saying A, B, C, D also? But then different surveys, different sample sizes, very extensive for the Statistical Service one, And so ultimately, we had the same results. So I think that is what we should be focusing on. When it comes to the judiciary, I must say that if people talk about their interactions, they might be dealing with the magistrates and at the lower level of the structure. But you know that at the higher level, we see a lot of actions. We heard about the analysis expose, for instance, and we saw some judges being relieved of their positions and their roles, and so they left.
That's right.
So that was action that we saw. We also get to know that at the higher level, there are so many things that are happening. So you don't just, be able to easily go bribe a judge. I'm not saying it would be easy to bribe a magistrate at that level. No, I'm not saying so. But then at the high courts or the whatever. But then people might have experiences more at the lower level, but still they have confidence in the administration because at the end of the day, that's the only one we have. Maybe there's no other alternative adjudicatory body than the judiciary, than the courts. And so they've seen some action in the past. So then if you'll be able to resolve the challenges we are having with you now, we would be able to flow with you. Remember that in the CDD Afrobarometer survey findings, people also talked about democracy. And they said that I think about 84% or so still believe in democracy.
That's right.
And the judiciary has a very important role to play in sustaining our democracy. And for that matter, if I believe in democracy, and I'm still saying these institutions are corrupt, but then there is one that I still have to go to when all is said and done, then that's confidence or trust that they still have the judiciary is very, very good for all of us. For me, if they have said that they don't also trust the court at all, that is when we should be very worried. But now we have some hope to an extent that all said and done, we don't trust some of these institutions. But for the courts, we still know that it's the place we can still go to get our matters resolved for us.
There's been a reaction from the Office of the Vice President. One of his technical persons there was the one you heard not too long ago on the show. His reaction was that he would rate the president his fight against corruption 80-something plus. What do you say to that?
That was laughable. And I'm saying so because when we put all our efforts together, we are looking for only one outcome, that corruption will be minimized. I'm a realist. I wouldn't say corruption will be totally eradicated from any society, no. So then if you put all the efforts put together, the legislation, the institutions, the resources, the men, the capacity building, and even with the National Anti-Corruption Action Plan being implemented for the past 8 years, it's supposed to be a strategic plan for a 10-year period. And we are getting the findings. We just have to go back to the drawing table and then re-strategize. So for me, if you put everything together, the president showing his leadership is whatever it is, he rating whatever, that's not really matter here. What matters is that Ghana is still having challenges in dealing with the problem of corruption. Unless, of course, you just appeared from the moon yesterday, so you don't know the reality. You can feel it, you can see it. So for me, unless we start seeing getting the result that we are looking for from the actions and the inactions of the leaders, I wouldn't rate the president the way he's rating him. I would rate the president when I see corruption now, Ghana scoring about 80% on the CPI, and I'll give him 80% for the effort he has put in. For now, I think what he said, I don't agree with him at all.
If you were to rate the president, what will it be?
I'll do that on another program.
On another program? So you said at the launch of this report that we have been using corruption to recycle elections to recycle corruption. We should move beyond that and not wait for elections. What do you mean? What ought to be done?
Let me explain myself. What I actually mean is that in the past, when we used to use elections to vote in new governments whom we perceive to are going to do very well for us when it comes to dealing with the canker of corruption. So that in Ghana, it has always been a situation where people actually come to office on the back of anti-corruption. So you see the manifestos and you see all the good things that are being said in there. Some of us who do anti-corruption know that what we have in those kind of manifestos will not solve the problem. Just that they have been presented alone shows that they are committed one small way to the issue. Then we vote anti-corruption leaders into office. And we still have corruption. Then I'm looking into the future. We have other persons or parties that can also come to office. And they also might not have a record that is so, encouraging. What can I say? So it's like I'm going into the next election or the next 2 elections or the next 3 elections, and I'm voting for a party, and I'm just hoping this party will come and do some magic, like the confidence and trust that we had in the current president. So then if you don't get that, then you get what we are getting now. Then obviously, I must say that the election is not doing the magic for us any longer.
One of the contributors at the launch of the findings, and that'll be my final question to you on this, said that, and he seemed to have echoed what some of you, the people in the anti-corruption fight, have been saying, that there's a need for frequent public denouncements by the political class of corruption, especially by the president, and that is not happening. Is that what you think is going on, and that's not helping the corruption fight?
For me, it is one of the things that is not helping the fight against corruption, and that is when I talk about leadership role. So we are not saying the president should go and hold the hands of people and put them to jail without any investigations. No, nobody's calling for that. But then, what has been his own posture? What has been what kind of results or what kind of examples do we have? If you look at the CPI, for instance, for the past 6 years, we've been dancing around 41, 42, 43, 43, our best score. I think that's 2021 CPI score. And we have not moved beyond that. So then what else can we look up to? We have not seen the results. And for me, if the president can actually, we are not saying he's not done anything. To be frank, I'll be a liar. We have the SP's office, fantastic, RTI legislation and all those things. But then political corruption is still a very serious one, and that is where we think he can actually show us more commitment by calling some people to order. And we have been so many SPs. There have been some actions.
You just mentioned the SP's office. You are the same group that have been complaining that what the SP's office need is not being, furnished it. So the SP's office has been a bit handicapped. We heard about the SP taking a step to investigate the police on corruption, particularly in the area of police recruitment exercises. We understand that all that is being frustrated by the police. So where are we going with the SP's office that we tout?
Where are we going with the SP's
office that we have been touting?
Oh yes, we need more resources. Any day, any time, I actually advocate for that. That it's a good institution. The objective in the act is very important, and for me, it has a very important role to play, to be an institution focusing solely on corruption and maybe ground corruption. So then we have to properly resource the SP's office to do its work. We have to do so, to put in place infrastructure. That is not the only solution. For me, the only solution now going forward will be to re-strategize, go back to the drawing table and see what we have done. We passed laws, we've done A, B, C, D. We have not gotten the results. We have not been able to move about 43 on the CPI. Apple barometer findings in 2022 is worse than the last one in 2019. Corruption is not stagnating, as we used to say. Now it's deteriorating. So what do we have to do? We have to go back to the drawing table, all stakeholders discussing and planning, including the political group as well, to see what else.
Okay, now Dr. Champong, and a while ago we just saw the figures there. 2019, the survey, people who were afraid to report corruption, who are afraid of retaliation, 61%. Today is 69%.
Yeah, I think it fits into a certain mindset and a mindset that if I go and report, then something might happen to me or be done to me. And I have also interacted with quite a number of people, and you get that perception strongly filtering through that, even if I see something bad happening, they sort of feel a bit hesitant in wanting to actually then report and then subsequently some corrective action being taken. So in my maybe rather limited world where it's not a full sample or anything like that, I saw that. So perhaps it's not too surprising to see that being picked up in the Afrobarometer survey. So, but it tells us one thing, that, you know, the rhetoric and the reality is sort of two different things. Because I know that the current administration and the president actually campaign on a very strong anti-corruption, you know, track record, and they will come in and they will fix the issues and all of that. But when you actually look at the outcomes, either from the Afrobarometer, Corruption Perception Index, and so many other indices, we're still more or less where we are. And in fact, you could even argue when you look at some of the data points that things relatively are not going the way we should, you know, deteriorating them. So let's use the Afrobarometer survey. In 2014, the percentage of the respondents that indicated that corruption has somewhat increased or increased a lot, that was like 83%. So that's 8 in 10 of the population. And then that dropped sharply in 2017 to 39%. So that was a new administration, and perhaps all of that rhetoric, the expectation, and the expectation feeding in. But then in 2019, it goes to 53, and between 2019 and 2022, it goes to 77%. So almost that 8 in 10 population, right, back at the levels as we saw in 2014, where we were complaining about Doomsaw and bus branding and all those other, Suba, all of those things in there. So fundamentally, it tells me that although the administration might have done something, those efforts actually are not translating into reducing the perception of corruption or even the lived experience of people in relation to corruption. And this, for me, is also quite interesting because, as my good friend, Dr. John Osai-Kwapon would say, Ghanaians have made their peace with democracy. And you can see that in the Afrobarometer data. So largely, we support elections as the best way of electing our leaders. And if you go back 20 years to 2002, that was 89%. So 9 in 10 Ghanaians saying we should elect our leaders. In the latest one is 84%. So it's roughly hasn't changed. But it gets interesting, and this is why I think the corruption issue is very, very fundamental, because it really threatens the very survival of this, you know, Fourth Republic, if we're not careful. Because when you again pick the data a little bit, in 2012, when Afrobarometer starts asking the question of accountability, 58% of the respondents said that they prefer accountable governance. So they want the institutions to work. We've gone to elect the president and all of that, but we want, you know, the core institutions to deliver the mandate. And interestingly, when you look at the 2022 data, it's now 78% of Ghanaians saying they want accountable governance. So it tells you we have deteriorated in about 10 years from 58 to about 78, almost, you know, 30 percentage points. And that tells you that this democracy is not working, and it's not delivering the governance that we want. It is not translating into reducing corruption, and one of the core issues again goes back to, you know, the whole campaign financing, which is the big elephant we haven't even
the respondents completely don't like to hear the questioning about funding. They contributing to fund political campaigns.
So it's two things. If you don't pay, somebody's going to pay. And he who pays the piper will call the tune. So I think it's high time we need to have a conversation as Ghanaians that we should be prepared to pay to support our political parties, because that's the only way you can demand some form of accountability. If somebody going into parliament, or let's say becoming a president, is receiving money from
No, just look at the recent party internal elections.
People are receiving all sorts of monies, gifts, things from all sorts of...
It was a contest between who can pay more.
Dodgy and funny places. Then, of course, if they come into power, I'm going to be demanding for some perks. And that is what manifests ultimately in the grand corruption that we're seeing, right? So I think we have done too much talking. Let's start actually acting, and let's start begin to deliver the dividends of this democracy. Because yes, we say we want to go every 4 years or whatever many number of years to change our government, but clearly this is not working. And one of the outcomes or things that tells me this is not working is the fact that corruption perception has been going up, and the fact that we are not seeing the gains of the development trickling down to the grassroots.
Suleiman, are you not worried about the institutions that have taken at least the first 4 top spots? Police, Jubilee House, MPs, and judges. That is the executive, the judiciary, and parliament, 3 arms of the state.
Well, first of all, I think these are the same institutions that manage our resources. And so if there are perceptions of corruption, it certainly would be emanating from these same institutions and departments and so on. Now, a little bit on the police and why I said I'm not surprised. Because if you look at the question that was asked, then you go back to, if you did a survey in a district, how many of the people in the district would have encountered the presidency or the president, for example, or a parliamentarian or parliament or a judge? There will be fewer than those who may have encountered the police, because almost every major town you will find a police station, and once in a while people will get an incident. So based on the question again, if you look at where the presidency is placed, number 2, and you think of the fact that, look, the people who are responding to these questions are people who would rarely have an opportunity to engage with the presidency or engage with the president, and yet they know or they believe that the presidency is that much corrupt, then it tells you that indeed the presidency is even far more than the police in this context, because you are talking to people who would always engage with the police and come to the reality of how much they transact with the police. But in terms of the presidency, look, maybe 70% of the respondents may not have directly engaged with the presidency or the president before, but that is the perception. But Samson, if you look at the Afrobarometer data, it shows that in the last 20 years, in terms of approval ratings, I mean, whether or not people approve of the performance of the president, President Akufo-Addo scores the lowest in the last 20 years. When you take disapproval ratings, the extent to which people disapprove of the president's performance, President Akufo-Addo scores the highest in the last 20 years. So you are talking about a president who, if you look at disapproval, 17% when he came into office. Only 17% of the population said, look, we disapprove of how he's performing. Then that moves to 36 in 2019, and it jumps from 36 to 70%. That is 7 out of every 10 people saying that we disapprove of the president's performance. Again, if you look at the levels of corruption, 39% in 2017 goes to 53% and moves to 77% in 2022. Again, that's a very, very terrible indication to look at. Then, if you look at the performance of the government in fighting corruption, and I agree with Linda when she says, look, the RTI, passage of the RTI law is fantastic. A law that, for almost 20 years, every government was dancing around it. And then this government comes in and passes it. The Office of the Special Prosecutor, even though I'm not a fan of the Office of the Special Prosecutor, because for me, my reading is that it's an admission that, look, whoever I appoint as the Attorney General, because he comes from my party, will not fight corruption. And therefore, I need an independent individual who would take on, people in my government when they are engaged in corruption. But you are the same person who would appoint this person. That is why we all applauded the appointment of Martin Amidu, because this was somebody who was coming from the opposition and has a track record of, openly fighting corruption, even within his own government. So yes, the Office of the Special Prosecutor, we can give credit, but as I said, I'm not a fan of it, because it's like, just basically saying the AG will not be able to deal with people who are corrupt in my government because he's part of it, and we need an independent person to do that. But if you do all this, and people still think, about 85% of people still think, that is about almost 9 in 10 Ghanaians think that, look, the president has not done enough to fight corruption. And that is what the Afrobarometer data shows. And Afrobarometer has been in existence for a while, and so far it's proving to be credible. The methodology has been proven to be robust. Yes, every research will have, bits and pieces that has to be.
The interesting thing is that the politicians have issues with it when they are in government.
Exactly.
They are happy about it when they are out of government.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So if I were the president, I would really be worried, because 9 out of 10 people say, I am not doing enough to fight corruption. Now, people who disapprove of my performance is the lowest, is the highest since the last 20 years. The number of people who say I'm not doing well is I'm the person to score the highest. The number of people who say I am doing well, I'm the one to score the lowest.
It depends on who you have surveyed. Yesterday there was a chief. I think he was the president was cutting a sword for road projects in the Dome, area. And there was a chief who said that if people haven't seen the good he has done, they have seen it. So it depends on who you survey, isn't it?
No, absolutely, and that is why it is not 100%, Samson. So 9 out of 10. It means that if you have 1,000 people, there would be some 100 people who would say, oh, well, things are going well. But there are 900 people who are saying, look, things are not going well. And so certainly you should be worried. And if I were the president or if I were a member of this government, I would be worried about these findings, regardless of what the person who was interviewed at the vice president's office was saying. And certainly if you are working in the vice president's office, we expect that you praise whatever is happening, particularly at a time when the survey has also revealed that the number of people who feel it's risky to speak about corruption is rising. So if you find yourself where he finds himself, certainly you should be applauding whatever is happening. So
in fact, you get attacked when you talk about corruption.
Exactly.
Right.
But the other interesting thing for me is the fact that the survey indicates that people endorse media freedom. A lot more people are saying, look, the media has to be freer. A lot more people are of the view that the media have to perform their watchdog role, hold duty bearers accountable, and that for me is quite refreshing, because there was an Afrobarometer data previously that indicated that the support for media is rather dwindling. So if we are beginning to see an upsurge in the support for media freedom, I think that is quite refreshing.
And trust in the independence of the media to operate.
Because if you look at the figures again in terms of who is corrupt, yes, private media, public media, there's some level of corruption, but at 27% compared to 65% at the presidency, I think that's something that is encouraging.
Yes, Martin, what do you make of this? And coming just a week after, we spoke about the actual one. Oh, who gave a boom speech? Yourself?
Oh dear. Yeah, so Sam, good. Let me preface this with an article Madam Elizabeth Ohini did in the newspaper Daily Graphic, Wednesday, 27 July. Based on what, or as a reaction to what happened there last Saturday. I like, it ties in with the results of this survey showing the presidency being very high up there. And it turns out it's always been like that, right? Yeah, she says when she was growing up, that was it. So I'm interested in this part. It says, I grew up when Flagstaff House was the headquarters of all corruption. The article is
titled, Speaking Truth to Power with Prejudice.
Excellent, thank you. I grew up when Flagstaff House was the headquarters of all corruption. In the midst of all of it, you would hear people say, the president was okay really. it was the people around him who were the problem. Yes, that's Kwame Nkrumah. Of course, largely Kwame Nkrumah was far better than a number of the presidents we've had, except, of course, Mills on the other side, okay? So Mills aside, Kwame Nkrumah, was better than a lot of the presidents we've had, okay? Yeah, so, and then before that, she recounted how Kufuor's time, it was the same clamoring that was the headquarters. Of course, President Kufuor himself accepted that the contractors were bringing gifts like that to the presidency. Wow, you remember? Yeah, so it ties in. So this perception is actually reality, because you see, the perception doesn't come from a vacuum. No, and this perception cannot just continue all these decades. It's really tied to the reality, because look, don't forget that the contractors who go to Jubilee House and get contracts, because they get arm twisted and all those things, they come and they complain. So if somebody just thinks, oh, it's perception, no, the perception is born out of reality. People sit there and they cry that, look, I should have had a better percentage, but some officials are taking this percentage of that. There are some contracts that were done and dusted before this current administration came. They had to be reopened and redone in a way to give some people some percentages, lest the contract wasn't going anywhere. I like one that a certain lawyer did. They were going to twist his arm. He stood his grounds. And then, of course, he took some measures, and eventually the people backed off, okay? So, Sam, the survey results just shows that, look, even though we say it's perception, but it's really born out of a lot of reality. And Madam Ohini Twist made the point. Yes, I'm happy. Let me repeat a bit about what Suleimana said, because that touched my heart about the media freedom. I'm so much interested in it. The point that this survey shows that there is renewed support. And that's very important, because you see that you made the earlier point that we've made our peace with democracy. But if we've made our peace with democracy and yet there is no media freedom, forget it. You know, there was this president, was it Thomas Jefferson, who said he prefers a country with a media, okay, and no presidency, to a country with a presidency without a media. I think Jefferson was, third or fourth president of the US. Yeah, and it stood the time. When the media throw the searchlight, then people can see other perspectives. They throw searchlight on corruption, the rot, the wastage, because we will never run from it. This morning you mentioned it. Annually, we are losing about $3 billion. That's a lot of money.
Unexplained.
Yes.
Unaccounted.
Unaccounted. That's a lot of money. And that's what the president promised us he was coming to fight, and we are not seeing it, right? So that also ties in with the fact that, yes, now that people are supporting media is good, because you see that apart from they saying 69% now say it's risky to report, there's also another question which is different. Even common politics, they say people have to be careful about what they say about politics. 67%. So it tells you that though we are saying we are embracing democracy, but one of the very fundamental tenets to democracy, which we say in Chi, Kabimamin Kabino, no, we are not realizing it. 67% say they have to be careful what they say about politics. That's too huge. I think we should roll out more programs, encourage more people. Look, listen, citizens have to realize that a man has got to do what a man has got to do. In every society, at every point in time, tyranny would always exist. And citizens must also come up, okay? And like they say, from time to time, the tree of democracy, okay, is watered with the blood of patriots and villains. So some people have to come up and fight. And in the process, yes, there will be casualties, but that's how it is. Some pay the price for others to enjoy. So this 67%, I think that Joy FM, maybe there should be some series about encouraging citizens to fight, okay? Bring the Anasses, bring Manasseh. Is Manasseh not still walking around? You see, after he did that militia in the city, and then he was hounded out of the country, he came back. He did the Zoom Lion thing. Is that not that story that goes back to the office, in the desk of the president? See how the president wasted our money by asking that some COVID spraying be done. Over 122 million. Come on. The president should be answering for that. We will talk. Listen, Nobody will get
122 million is what the finance ministry says it cost us for the first phase.
Thank you.
But the local government ministry, which is supposed to be responsible for that project, reports that phase 1 and phase 2 cost us 153 million.
Thank you.
And I mentioned also the fact that the education ministry and there's one other, they spent a total of 500 million for that kind of spraying around the place.
Thank you. Yeah, so look, Sam, the point is that we are going to talk. Death can come. Listen, we will not run. Kwame Nkrumah did his bit. People died along the way. So, Sam, I think this particular thing that the expose Manasseh did, I think what President Akufo-Addo can do for us, the least he can do is that let's have a commission of inquiry. Let's have an open, independent commission of inquiry, because this waste, we will not allow it to go. He has to be held accountable for it. Why do you order that spraying be done when same is not necessary? You see what the WTO did. Didn't he say he has all the experts? WHO, World Health Organization. Then President Akufo-Addo said that he has all the experts at the Jubilee House. So who advised him to ask for the spraying when same was not necessary? If you are doing such a COVID spraying, one would expect that the least he would have done is that, apart from his experts, he should have checked with WHO. So I think that the least President Akufo-Addo can do about this Manasseh expose is that let's have a public inquiry, commission of inquiry. He should come, answer, bring the experts who advise him. Let's have a full inquiry. They will be cross-examined on the basis for their, advice to him and the rest. Because some 122 million for one phase, it's no chicken change. No, that's a colossal sum. So what is the phase 2? How much did it cost? Because you see that the figures are contradictory. And also, finance minister gives his separate, local government gives his, they're separate. Let's have a commission of inquiry. We are not going to run. In every society, listen, some people must talk, okay? And then, of course, the rest of the citizens must also back us. So those of our fellow citizens who are home and are scared, if you get scared, it will get worse. That's why they say evil triumphs when citizens, good people do what? Nothing about things.
If you get scared, it will get worse. I'd like us to, because we have very limited time, if we could go to the to Parliament to talk about the Adwoa Safo matter, but we know that it is not limited only to Adwoa Safo, because Odikro, which has been telling us for many years now about the level of absenteeism in Parliament, is telling us that perhaps there are more MPs who are supposed to suffer and not Adwoa Safo alone. So I wrote this article in 2018 on the back of evidence from Odikro. And I noted a few things. That in fact, between January 2013 and July 2014, the average MP missed 1 in every 4 sittings of the House. This increased by 58% by 2015. On June 12, 2015, only 83 MPs were in the House. Over 22% were absent for many sittings without permission. In 2017, 27 MP ministers and 21 MP deputy ministers absented themselves more than 15 times. That's beyond the time that the Constitution requires, prohibits, during some 80 sittings. Now, I say you shouldn't get surprised because they absent themselves without permission, and that's a conduct in complete disregard of the Constitution and their own rules. But whilst those who double as ministers may give the obvious excuses, it is scandalous to find that opposition MPs are equally guilty, and NDC MPs constitute 28%, while 72% of MPP MPs form the list of absentee MPs. Both the Constitution in Article 97 and Order 16 of the Standing Orders of Parliament prohibit this conduct. An MP may only absent himself for such a long period within 3 months, that's a meeting of the House, with a period of 3 months, by seeking permission in writing from the Speaker. The Constitution dictates that MPs who violate this rule must vacate their seats, and the order empowers and requires the Speaker to declare such seats vacant. The Speaker won't do it. They don't ever do it. This time around, it does appear that it will happen. They disagree on how it must happen. Let's listen to them.
Mr. Speaker, the committees of this House has the authority to determine the urgency of a bill. Once they make a determination, it binds all of us. Plenary has no business in this. People should understand that. So this is not the first time a committee is authorized to make a declaration for on behalf of the House.
The Parliament of Ghana is not the Speaker of Parliament, and that the Parliament of Ghana is not the chairman of the Subsidiary Legislation Committee of Parliament, and that Parliament is not the majority leader, nor is it the minority leader. That the Parliament of Ghana is the well-constituted 275 members of Parliament elected thereon to exercise the legislative authority of Ghana on their behalf. On their behalf.
I have consulted the old lady. The old lady has given me an advice, and I think that advice is correct, because the issue raised by the majority leader is both of substantive and procedural law. And I need time to submit to this House a reasoned, written ruling. I cannot, in the haste, give you the ruling.
Right, so Martin, what do you say about this? According to Odikro, we should have about 33 of the lawmakers suffering the fate that should befall Adwoa.
Yes, that is like an explosion, right? What I saw the figures, that is staggering, right? So what we'll do is that since we've not had the opportunity to go into the basis for the 33, for now, I want to reserve judgment. We'll ask Odikro to give us further details. Maybe they should consult the votes and procedures.
Yes, they've done so. So they start with a list beginning with Adwoa, who has absented herself for 40 sittings.
Out of the 42 for that meeting. That
40
meeting
sittings.
42.
Henry Cote, who has been pardoned, that's the Ayawaso Central, right?
Yeah.
Yes. 30 sittings. Ejenim Boating Kweku, Brekum West, 28 sittings. Joe Gate, Esikado Ketam, 28 sittings. Ajiman Menu Kweku, Doma Central, 24 sittings. Kojo Opon Nkrumah, Ofuasia Yurebi, 24 sittings. Ignatius Bafo, 25 sittings. So there's a tall list.
Yeah,
but you know that it was the Accra minister and Kenneth Japon who were also referred to the committee, and they have explained themselves and they have been pardoned.
Excellent. Yes. So the point about this 33 that I'm saying we need further information is, I see now that the allegation has been made. You know, even this one has been sent to the Speaker. The Speaker has not yet responded. That's why we will have to reserve judgment on that. The persons involved will also then have opportunity to react. We'll get to see those who were given medical excuse duty and the rest. Then we will know the ones who are culpable. So for now, that one.
All right.
So we look at Adwoa, the debate as to whether losing the seat automatically or coming, the matter being brought back to the plenary. I support the school of thought that the matter should come back to the plenary as it has come, and the Speaker is going to give a ruling on it. Because otherwise, it can bring chaos that when an allegedly erring MP appears before the Privileges Committee, they look at it, and when they come to their decision, pro tanto, that's the end. If they say he is falling foul of the rule, so then the seat becomes automatically vacant. I think, no, that would cause a lot of problems for due process. So it's better that, like it happened, the Amwati one, you bring it back to the plenary, then they look at it. Yes, that's the way I see it. You know, like they've been saying, Abraham Lincoln once said, no law can write down, specify everything. So our Constitution can't write everything procedurally, not even the standing orders of Parliament. So gleaning from the Constitution and the standing orders, I think the right thing is that when the Privileges Committee is done, they bring it back to the plenary, then they look at it and decide. Not just that the Privileges Committee alone would just take their decision and that's the end of the matter. No, let's look at it because there are broader issues at stake. Okay.
Yes. So there are people who are so unhappy with the NDC in its posture in this matter that someone who is paid by our tax money has not been in the house for the entire sitting. How many months? And she's paid. And first people were angry that the president couldn't muster the courage, so to speak, to sack her. And eventually when the president decides to, do away with her, he says it is the appointment that has been revoked. He doesn't say he's been sacked.
Well, I think in relation to the president's statement, the revocation, in my opinion, constitutes a dismissal, because that is what the Constitution talks about in terms of relieving a minister of their position. The Constitution actually talks about revocation of the appointment. And so in my view, that constitutes a dismissal of Adwoa Safo. I was particularly surprised to read that from the presidency, because in my view, even though I knew I hadn't read anything that suggested Adwoa Safo had been dismissed, I was quite curious whether indeed the president was still keeping her as a minister for a sensitive and an important ministry as gender and social protection. Of course, the statement from the presidency then confirmed the fact that, all this time, Adwoa Safo was still a minister and was being paid. And the president was okay having a caretaker minister for that ministry.
So she was being paid as MP and a minister?
Of course. Even though they would say, well, you can't receive double salary. And so if you're a minister, there is a little bit,
that's right,
above an MP salary.
Yes.
So those who are MP ministers would obviously be receiving the conditions of service of a minister. So for those almost a year now, she's being paid, with no work being done. But the president was okay. Now, on Parliament, I think that our Parliament need to take us quite serious by at least making us convinced that in terms of the rules, they enforce it they enforce it not only when it affects outsiders, but also when their own members, infringe the laws. The Constitution is quite clear. If you absent yourself for 15 days without a written permission from the Speaker, you are automatically supposed to be referred to the Privileges Committee, and that is where you acquit yourself. So for me, the expectation is that these 33 MPs, and the Adwoa Safo, Henry Kote, Kennedy Japan referral was triggered by a
Ras
petition.
Mubarak.
Yes, was triggered by a petition. Of course, Ras Mubarak may not be aware that all these others, the other 30 MPs have also absented themselves for that number of days. That then automatically requires that they be referred to the Privileges Committee. I expect Speaker Babin to do the right thing, to adhere to the tenets of the Constitution, unless, he comes out to say, look, Odukro got it wrong, and that not all of them absented themselves without my permission. But I'm tempted to believe Odukro, because it's almost been normalized that, as an MP, you can, be absent, still collect your salary, and so on and so forth. But now that we have this evidence, I expect Speaker Babin to do the right thing by referring them to the Privileges Committee. I'm not saying that they ought to then vacate their seat, because the Constitution talks about the conditions under which they vacate their seats, and that is that if the MP is absent without permission in writing, the permission must be in writing of the Speaker, and he is unable to offer a reasonable explanation to the Parliamentary Committee on Privileges. My understanding, therefore, is that once you absent yourself for 15 days without the written permission, automatically you owe the Privileges Committee an explanation. And that means that you must be referred. So I expect a referral of all these people to the Privileges Committee. If at the committee they are able to acquit themselves. And Ghanaians would be happy. The Ghanaians, the confidence that they may have in Parliament will be boosted once we have the evidence that, look, the speaker is doing the right thing by, referring these people to the privileges committee. It's almost like a headmaster being in school. People don't come to school and nothing happens. And then you have evidence that, look, this person, for this number of days, they've not come to school. And then if in the end, we don't see any action on the part of the speaker, then I will be quite curious. The next time an ordinary person or a member outside parliament is referred before the privileges committee, because we must all be equal before the law. And I believe in Speaker Babin to do the right thing. So that is what I will look forward to.
Dr. Chamba, at least now something is happening, isn't it? People have been shocked and surprised, but I don't know what we do about getting surprised and shocked, because a parliament of 275, they need 1/3 to form their basic quorum to conduct business. Will you believe that there have been times that they can't get the 1/3, which is only 92 of the 275 members? And you have had speakers complain over and again, but nobody ever cracks the whip. In 2016, they couldn't get a quorum to debate the budget. So something good is happening now, right?
Well, to an extent, and I'll come to that, but I just thought I had a small point on Senior Martin's spraying exercise. I think if you recall, in the early days of the pandemic, many countries, because the scientific evidence was changing, we saw them actually do some spraying. I mean, I saw tapes in China and a few other places, all of that. So perhaps the issue is not really so much about the spraying itself and whether it wasn't scientifically valid, but more about, of course, the cost, and all of that. So I just thought I had that point in the list.
In that particular documentary, Manasseh spoke to about 4 of the experts from Noguchi, from University of Ghana, and I think from KNUST, and they said there was no science to it, that you go to a classroom that has been there for months without anybody being there. There's no point spraying because it's a waste of time. And they use the World Health Organization advice to make that claim. But of course, there was the director of the Ghana Health Service, who said, well, like you just said, they were not sure. Yeah. So it was okay too.
No, yeah. I am making this just on the basis of some of the tapes that I saw in the early days of the pandemic. Okay. The science was constantly sort of changing. But I think there's a very valid point about the cost. Right. Because in this country, we know that many of these things are inflated. And ultimately, some money, changes hands somewhere. That's a fact that we can agree to. So now specifically to the...
But the small issue about that also is that the spraying exercise, there was already a contract for the company to be doing the spraying every year.
Thank you.
Now, when the pandemic came in, they got a contract which was not the same contract. So the question was, are they doing a duplication and being paid twice?
I think that's why we need that public inquiry.
Yeah. And the Constitution mandates
fully support some form of inquiry around that, and being able to come to a full realization as to how those monies were spent.
Yeah, and in fact, he spoke to the district assemblies. Kumasi, for example, they said we can do this.
Excellent.
We have told them we can do it. We have been doing it. Some of it over time. So we have all the equipment. All we need is just little money to buy the chemicals.
That's it.
And they were
spent over 100 million Ghana cedis.
Somebody is sitting in Accra and creaming off the contract, preventing it from going to the district. So,
anyway, okay, so let's go to...
But on the parliament thing, I think one of the things we need to interrogate is why do we get these persistent absences? Going all the way back several years.
Right.
And I think a part of the core reason really is the constitutional structure or provision where you have to take a certain number of your ministers from parliament. And I'm sure when many of these, it's about 40 or so on the list, are called to the privileges committee, they might say that they were actually engaged in a very important national exercise. And they may not have given the written permission or whatever but they can equally come and attempt to wiggle their way out. And I think the solution, or maybe what we should all consider really is, has it come a time now as Ghanaians to actually think about decoupling, right, those two provisions, where you can actually select your ministers from wherever you want without necessarily the recourse to the parliamentarians, because I think the number is about 50% or so, if I'm not mistaken. So if at any point you have 80 plus ministers and let's say half of them are coming from the House, then it's going to be a problem.
Okay.
But also, of course, it cuts across. So there are also other opposition MPs who locally would miss sitting in the House and all of that. But I think
the three MPs were for sittings for the first session, but this other list that they have brought is for the current session.
Absolutely. You know, and so we need to see the committee and the speaker crack some whip. The process has to be fair.
Right.
And I think the Privileges Committee would give them the avenue to come and explain themselves. You know, borrowing Suleiman's point about the headmaster calling you to his office and asking you, you know, could you, what did you do? You know, give us the reasons why, you know, that. But at the end of it all, I think the fundamental point really is we need constitutional reforms in this country. We spent a lot of money, over $20 million in 2010, 2011, canvassed a lot of positions, and literally threw away that 1,000-page document as though the money didn't matter. And that is where I think we need to sort of focus a bit of our attention on.
Thank you very much. Linda, what do you say? You had been advocating, gender groups had been saying that there ought to be a replacement for Adjo Asafo. Now there's a replacement, but the question is, does she lose her seat? Yes, she will lose the seat, but how that decision will be made is the issue. What do you make of what is going on?
Samson, I think it's very worrying. For me, it's very sad that parliamentarians are just absenting themselves from parliament without permission. They might have reasonable reasons, excuses why they are not there. But without permission, it's actually not pardonable. And
look at Henry Kote, for example, very good excuse. He was actually not well, was taken out, actually paid to be treated by Parliament itself.
Yeah. And then if you also look at the list, I see members of Parliament who are every now and then holding government to account. And that is when I go like, the biggest problem we have in this country is accountability and non-enforcement of rules. So then you are very bold on airwaves, always holding government to account, and then we see your name in such a list. And also because Parliament is winning awards, and Open Parliament something not too long ago. Then you look at the award winning, and you look at the list from Odikru, and you look at the performance of Adjo Asafo, then you're like, what is happening in the country? We can't actually add one or two together. I think Speaker Bagwin should do something about this. Then if they investigate and Odikru's information is right, where there are sanctions, they should be applied appropriately, because they are the lawmakers, and the laws should be, or the rules should be applied also in this particular case. But for me, they are short-changing Ghanaians. I can't be in Parliament to actually express my opinion on matters, and I expect my member of Parliament to always. I've actually been looking through, and my MP from my hometown, I saw his name on the list. I don't want to mention him.
All right. Let me share a few of your messages. Kofi Amoa says, even in developed countries with proper developed systems, passport is allowed to register SIM cards. It's sad. Why are we making things difficult for ourselves? Akoto says the NIA should not be blamed for the chaos of the SIM registration exercise. NIA was not designed to issue cards to all Ghanaians for SIM registration by 31st of July. The NCA and the Ministry of Communication should make the process easier for Ghanaians. Troy Boating says, we are just in a pointless loop, doing the same thing over and over again without being creative about it. Is it a gap in our technology or ideas? Zacchaeus Ma says, I have registered for my Ghana card, but I went several times to take my card and they kept on giving me excuses. I still haven't gotten my card. How is it my fault that I have not registered? Young King says, there are good officers, but why are the Ghana police personnel still not being equipped with body cams to monitor and check their arbitrariness? The lengthy rejoinder to the Afrobarometer survey does nothing to the perception, but action to prove otherwise. John Mufti says, corrupt officials are not even bothered that you would find out about their crimes and corrupt practices. Their only consolation is that you can't do nothing about it. Until you can do something about what you found out, no exposure or investigation would do anything. Rock, same biometric data for one person being taken by different telcos. Maybe we can find a way to make one biometric data accessible to all telcos to reduce our stress. And I discovered that most of your comments have been dedicated to the SIM registration and the deadline. All right, so just in some 30 seconds or a minute, you may have some opportunity to say something about that. What do you say about that?
I think we should extend the deadline. For me, it's a no-brainer that you want to cut several Ghanaians out just because they don't have access to that. Yeah, so yeah.
All right. Thank you so very much. This has been Newsfile, and my guests have been Suleiman Brahima, Executive Director, Media Foundation for West Africa. Dr. Theo Champong is political risk analyst and economist. Martin Pebu is lawyer and rights activist. Linda Ofori-Kwafo is Executive Director, Ghana Integrity Initiative. Earlier, we spoke to Dr. Eric Odrosine, who is Director General, Internal Audit Agency. And we also spoke to Maximus Ametogo, Technology Analyst. I'm Samson Lardy Anyenini. Have a good afternoon. Thanks for your company.